Chapter 10. A Gas List. "I think," began Myrtle, her tongue tracing the plate for any uneaten crumbs, "having a Fing as a pet would be a big fat disaster." Mr. and Mrs. Meek let out a humongous sigh of relief. Their lives had been spared. "We couldn't agree more," exclaimed Mother. Father beamed. "You took the words right out of our mouths." "The creature would destroy everything," Myrtle continued. "You are so right, righter than right," cooed Mrs. Meek. "What a clever, clever girl you are," agreed Mr. Meek. "The car, the house, everything. It might even kill us all." "Excellent point," agreed Father. "Yes, best not to die if you can possibly avoid it," echoed Mother. "Who on earth would want a Fing as a pet?" "Ha ha ha ha," Myrtle laughed. Her parents joined in. Even the Monsterpedia seemed to wobble around, chuckling silently to itself. "Me," replied Myrtle. The laughter died instantly. Mr. and Mrs. Meek couldn't believe their ears. The book stopped dead still. "I want a Fing as a pet." But, began Mother. "No buts," shouted the girl, and she bashed her parents' heads together for emphasis. Clonk. "Ow! Ouch! I said I want a Fing, and I want it now." Mr. and Mrs. Meek looked at each other aghast. Both were so aghast it was impossible to tell who was most aghast, or, to give it its improper word, ghastliest. You can decide for yourself by seeing these are two ghastly pictures. For goodness sake, don't take too long deciding. We have a story to be getting on with, but please let's agree they were both extremely aghast, as indeed you would be if you had to bring a deadly animal into your home. Now all they had to do was to find one. Chapter 11. Twin Beds. The big question was this: who would have to go to the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle in search of this blasted Fing? Sitting up in their twin beds, Mr. and Mrs. Meek discussed this way into the night. Of course, both were desperate not to go, but, being who they were, the argument was remarkably polite. "But you need a jolly good holiday, Father," began Mother with a smile. "You have been working so hard at the library. You should go." No. You have always said you wanted to travel and explore the world, Mother," replied Father. "Have I? You said you wanted to go to the seaside for the day. Well, this will be very much like a day out at the seaside." "In what way?" pressed Mrs. Meek. Well, that stumped Father. "There might be an ice cream van," he offered pitifully. "An ice cream van?" Mrs. Meek was incredulous. "In the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle?" There was a loud banging on the wall. Boom, boom, boom. "Keep it down in there," shouted Myrtle from a bedroom next door. "I can barely hear myself grunt." Pfft! The grunt was so loud the whole house rumbled. Needless to say, Mr. and Mrs. Meek both looked appalled. Mother suddenly had a thought and whispered to her husband, "Of course, one of us is going to have to stay behind and look after our darling daughter all on their own." "I'll go," he replied as quick as a flash. "To the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle?" "Yes, so that's settled then. Good night." With that, he switched off the light. Flick. Mr. Meek slept like a baby that night. He woke up every 2 hours, crying his eyes out. And that's the end of the chapter. See you soon. Bye.